All right, folks, welcome to What in the History, Episode 8, Part 2. We are continuing Cyrus the Great. Today it is just myself and Johnny Smith. Johnny, how are you
Hello.
doing?
I am doing phenomenal today, Dan. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain today. Well, I'm sure I probably could, but I'm not going to because nobody wants to hear that.
That's that's the spirit.
How's everything on your end, sir?
Pretty good. I am trying a sun-kissed pineapple uh, flavored drink today,
Oh, yeah?
and we don't have any sponsors, but that would be a dope one. Hey, sun-kissed, where you at?
Oh, yeah. All right, everybody on Periscope, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. How is everybody? As always, send comments if you have questions to ask or input. Um, this is going to be a good episode. We're getting into the meat and potatoes of the life of Cyrus the Great, the conquering, the battles, the soldiers, everything that everybody wants to hear.
The good stuff. Yeah,
Oh, yes, sir.
the
I'm
stuff that
just
made him
sharing.
legend.
Oh yeah, the stuff that made him. That basically the reason
I
why
see
we're telling.
Carter.
Yep.
Yeah, I see. I get to see comments now, guys, so I
Oh,
can
you can.
respond to you because yeah, I'm using. I bought a new webcam and I'm using a laptop now, so I can actually see comments and interact with the audience if anybody says anything.
Oh, that works out great for me. Oh, all right.
Hope you guys like the new webcam too.
Oh, you look perfect.
Yeet yeet gang gang.
All right. So where we left off last week was Cyrus was just conquered his great grandfather Astiges. He was starting to build his great Archimede empire. That's where we leave the protagonists of our story off. Uh, Johnny, real quick, you got any questions or anything that were left over from last time?
Nope, we're good to sit. We're good to go. His rise to power. We got that now. What's up with him now?
All right, man. Also, this doesn't matter to anybody listening to this on podcast platforms, but I sent you the link, Johnny. If you care to share that, what do you
Yeah,
want
I
to
shared
get
it.
back? Do you want to get back into our story, or do you want to talk about his soldiers first?
Let's talk about his soldiers for a little bit first.
All right. The early military machine of Cyrus the Great wasn't what you would think it was. It wasn't professional by any means. In fact, when Cyrus set out against Medea, he relied more on friends and kinsmen from local tribes who united due to the troubled times. When it was over, these soldiers returned to their own homes and pastures, leaving Cyrus with almost nothing. Instead, the professional and conquering
So
armor
they
of
were
Cyrus,
just like a makeshift army.
yes, basically. The professional and conquering army of Cyrus would not come until later when he had conquered Medea. And even then, it would take some time for it really to come together. Once it had, however, Cyrus had a great army, which would continue through his successors. But the question is, what made them great? We got to take a deeper look into the military apparatus of the Persian army. Only then we might be able to figure that out. To begin with, there were the Immortals, a fearsome army of 10,000 men that were created by Cyrus the Great. They were recruited from the lower classes of Persia to serve as the king's personal bodyguard day and night. Wherever the king went, so did they. There were 10,000 men at all times. If for any reason one of these soldiers fell in, were wounded, or even died, he was immediately replaced to ensure the numbers of the guard were always always at 10,000, hence the name Immortals. It just kind of seemed like none of them ever died. They kept silent while marching in masses. Imagine this eerie scene. You are facing these fighting machines from the other end of the battlefield when all you feel is the earth tremble under your feet. A whole army just silently approaches you, quickly advancing. Back then, it was common for most warriors to scream and shout when in combat in order to intimidate their enemy. These guys did the opposite. They killed them with silence.
I
Besides the
imagine that was even an intense life, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Uh,
Like
besides
that's
this elite,
terrifying to think of, but then just the life you're living.
uh, they made up only 10% of Cyrus's entire army, while the other 90% was infantry or foot soldiers. As time went on, however, Cyrus started to notice the importance and effective of cavalry forces, so he increased their ratio to 20%. The additional cavalry was light, carrying only a bow. Moreover, the men were mainly of non-Persian ethnicity, though they were commanded for the most part by Persian officers. Their duty was to harass the enemy with a barrage of arrows and draw them into an attack. A hit and run approach that would be annoying to any attacker. Uh, so they get close enough to shoot their arrows and then fall back. Close enough to shoot the arrows, fall back. Persian nobles formed the heavy cavalry. These were armed with 2 javelin, a wooden or metal lance, and they carried uh, a small oval shield. The armor of the heavy cavalrymen was of leather overlapped with metal discs such as bronze, iron, and gold, and was often colored in order to distinguish one unit from another. The
Hmm,
infantry was
that's
was
wild.
between light. They were between light and heavy. The light units carried spears and swords, while their heavier counterparts bore a longer spear, a shorter sword, and a battle axe. These heavier infantry wore black hoods that covered their head and much of their face. Got to remember, these guys were fighting in the desert. This had to be just terrible.
You
Uh,
know what, though? From
along,
what I understand, from some places in the desert, with putting a cloth over your head is a better option than exposing yourself to the elements.
right. Alongside the cavalry and infantry units, there were the charioteer units. The Persian chariot was slightly higher and heavier than the Egyptian and Babylonian equivalents, requiring 4 horses to pull it instead of the standard 2. However, these chariots had the ability to carry an extra man. One drove the cumbersome vehicle while the other passenger was a soldier, either a spearman or an archer. To make it even more destructive, Cyrus had scythes installed on the axles, which extended 2 yards out from the wheel. Overall, it was a deadly machine, but only when it was able to grace the battlefield, as no charioteer or, for that matter, horse would plow into a forest of spear points and shields. Uh, Instead, the chariot was more effective against light infantry, loose formations, and troops of undisciplined men unwilling to stand their ground in the face of combat. In addition to archers, charioteers, and spearmen, there was a very unlikely group that was of great importance to the army: combat engineers. These men would move ahead of advancing forces to repair or build roads and bridges. They would dig ditches or use pontoon boats as floats for bridges to get the massive and heavy army across. In fact, to transport this huge army was a feat in itself. With all their ingenuity and complexity of their military system, still had to have a supply to be able to accommodate this giant juggernaut when on the move. So yeah, big army.
Hi, I just want to say hello, Ash Hall. Hello, Carter Levi. We appreciate the sub. I'm not sure who you are,
Yeah.
but we really appreciate it.
Oh, let me get back to this. Oh,
They're having a whole ass catch up conversation on here.
oh yeah, that's what it looks like.
Carter's advertising like a motherfucker, though. She's like Spotify. What
Well,
in the history? Check it out.
yeah. For some reason, I don't get why. Um, so that's a basic rundown
Carter's
of
a
what the
what in the history soldier.
army, our
Yeah,
charioteer,
that army
if
was
you will.
huge.
Yeah.
And then, like, they were
So
very strategy driven.
right. Oh, we got 3 people watching. Everybody, say what's up if you're watching. Please let us know that you're here. Let us know what you want to know. Um, what was that?
You got questions? I do too.
What are you have any right now?
Not at the moment. I was just, I'm trying to be relatable. You know how it is.
Yeah. All right. So back to our story right now. After disposing of his grandfather and uniting the kingdoms of Media and Persia, Cyrus began to look outside these newly established borders to expand his empire further. First, he pushed further north and seized the realm of Urartu from Asia Minor, modern day Turkey. And after this annexation, Cyrus wanted more. And as such, he naturally began to look towards the west and the kingdom in nearby Lydia, which was controlled by a king named Croesus. The forces of Cyrus
What
engaged
nationality were they?
um, part of Turkey nowadays.
Okay.
The
That doesn't clear
force of
anything up,
Cyrus,
but I'm geographically
yeah, uh,
challenged.
the forces of Cyrus engaged Croesus troops around the city of Cappadocia in what is today part of Turkey. If the legend is to believe, Cyrus used a cavalry equipped with camels to take on the armies of Croesus, and according to Herodotus, it was the camels that provided the deciding factor in the engagement. As this ancient historian described, the horse fears the camel and cannot abide the sight or smell of it. Indeed, as soon as the battle was joined, the very moment the horses smelled the camels and saw them, they bolted back, and down went all the hope for Croesus. Whatever the case may
First
be,
off,
yes,
that's cool as shit. That is cool as shit. Having camels battle.
yeah.
Like, even the look of it sounds amazing. And I don't know much about camel horse interactions, but if that's possible, that's crazy. I'm sure that army was like, what the hell happened?
Oh, for sure. And nobody expected Cyrus.
Oh, Dark Age, what's your question? Dark Sage. Dark's Age or Dark Sage? What's your question?
Dark Sage.
I want to
Oh, he's
host
on.
like a late night real advice show. Like Delilah After Dark. I'm gonna be like, you're on with John. What's your question? So I was like, I don't know how to approach my hobby. I'm like, I'm not sure, sweetie. Here's a song to play you out for the night.
This is John. Shine your love light.
This is You're On with John Thunder.
Hmm.
Well, so
Hmm.
that seemed like a very unique battle, and it seemed like it
Right.
was not common for that to happen, the way they speak about it.
Right. After the stint of a bloody, protracted warfare, the Lydian army collapsed and did indeed submit to the rule of Cyrus in similar fashion to how he treated. Okay, hold on. From my history and understanding, Cyrus the Great had the largest empire at the time the world had ever seen, and he was a great military leader. Could you not make the argument in history that Cyrus was a precursor to the Mongol Empire and what Genghis Khan would be as a military leader? Yes, but I agree. I think Cyrus laid the groundwork because he was one of the first big leaders in terms of the world history. He set the footwork for other empires, for Alexander the Great, and so on and so forth. He definitely set the standard for this I want it, I'm going to take it mentality that empires later had. But the difference between Genghis Khan and Cyrus was that Cyrus treated his captors or his captive and the nations he took over with the level of respect and mercy. Genghis Khan did not. He just took everything, killed everything, burned everything.
Can I take a shot
That's
at this?
yes.
Uh, could you, Cyrus Burkers, to the Mono Empire and Genghis Khan be as military leader? Yes.
That was your shot.
Yep, that's my answer.
But I agree. I think uh, Cyrus did set the mold or the standard for guys like Genghis Khan to come in. And we'll discuss more like that. Cyrus just had this mentality of, I see that over there, I'm going to take that over there, which eventually leads to his downfall. But it set up this great empire. And for a very long time, this was the greatest empire that the world had ever seen. Yeah, more
I
lung
have a question,
cancer.
Dan. I have a
Yeah.
question. Who's recording this? Like in its history, so it's being recorded. Who is recording this? Who's writing this shit down?
As we discussed this last episode, the main teller of the story was Herodotus, who was a Persian scholar, basically, or a storyteller. Uh, that this is where we get most of Cyrus the Great from. Some things
Okay.
have been discovered and stuff, but a lot of what the story is comes from him and his retelling.
Okay.
Uh, so Cyrus treated this kingdom with respect. He spared the life of King Croesus. He kept him prisoner after taking over his kingdom. And here we are, as Herodotus tells it, the troops were allowed to kill anyone else they encountered on the battlefield, which is without mercy, but Croesus was not to be harmed. The conquest of the Lydian Empire in Asia Minor is believed to have occurred right on the heels of the seizure of Medea, most likely ending in the mid 540s BCE. So he never settled. He never stopped. Uh, Shortly after this, his armies were on the march again by 539 BCE, this time leading a massive invasion of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which at the time consisted of modern-day Iraq, Syria, and Israel. So pretty big piece of
So he was
land.
rolling.
Cyrus was
That's
able
wild.
to So he was able to catch the Babylonian army off guard, and it is said that the Babylonian military was quickly routed, making fruits of Babylon ready for Cyrus's taking. It also says that Cyrus was greatly helped in these efforts by a general named Ugbaru, who defected from the Babylonian side in similar fashion to what happened during the conquest of Medea. It is alleged that many Babylonians had, in fact, basically were disenchanted with their ruler and were ready to welcome Cyrus as a liberator rather than a conqueror. During his rule, Cyrus played up. Go
Is
ahead.
there anyone that knows, or like, did he ever profess to anyone what his actual goal was? Was it like world domination?
Uh, we talk about it coming up, but it basically, like I've said, he just wanted more.
Okay.
You know, during his rule, Cyrus played up the role of beneficent liberator as much as possible, as was most famously demonstrated in his decision to allow the Jews who had long been exiled by the Babylonians during the so called Babylonian captivity to finally be allowed back to their native lands, albeit under Persian rule, is the prophet book of Isaiah that is said to have predicted this feat, with a direct mention of a ruler named Cyrus being used as God's right hand to free Israel. The ruler of Babylon, Belshazzar's offices of governance were demolished, unlike other rulers who Cyrus had spared. Belshazzar himself was killed in the fighting. It seemed that Babylon, whose leadership had become despised even by the Babylonians themselves, were destined to blot out the corrupt leadership of their past. Seeking to fill the void and insert himself into local beliefs and traditions of the land, Cyrus announced himself as the new king of Babylon immediately upon his arrival to the capital city. He went so far as to say that the popular local deity Marduk had blessed his acquisition of that title. The resulting massive kingdom, the largest the world had ever known to that point, stretched from the Indus River in the east to Asia Minor in the west. Now Cyrus the Great rightfully proclaimed himself as king of the four corners of the world. Uh, Sage said, "Now, yes, you are correct. He did treat his people with respect, and the Mongols did not, but they were much like Cyrus and were not afraid of anyone or anything." That is very true. They were conquerors of the world. They were conquerors of the world at that time. Nobody could really beat them. So, this right now, he has conquered basically everything before him. There is one place left. Um,
And he's done it all with relative success. Like there's been not many bumps in the road.
right. He's just going on, uh, going on. During his lifetime, Cyrus the Great ruled over the largest continuous empire that the world had ever known. Even so, it was never quite enough for Cyrus, and he always wanted more. As soon as he conquered or annexed new territory, it wasn't long before contemplating further potential acquisitions. So he just wanted more because he could take more. It wasn't long before he began contemplating further potential acquisitions. According to Herodotus, as Cyrus reached the later years of his life, it was to his neighbors, the Mastigi, Mastagte, I forgot to look up pronunciation for this, so I'm sorry, in the north that he turned his attention. Located in the vicinity of modern-day Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, this remote steppe region was considered untamed and its peoples uncivilized by Persian standards.
He's covering
The
a
only
lot of
real,
ground.
oh yes, he is. The only real pretext for waging war against them was the fact that wild bands and nomads had frequently crossed over from this region to raid citizens of Cyrus's empire. Such attacks had long ago spurred Cyrus to action, and he erected several fortresses to keep a watch over the treacherous wilderness of the northern countries. But now that his empire had grown and reached a point of great stability, Cyrus wished to do more than simply keep a watch over the lands on his northern borders. Now he wanted to conquer them. He wanted to have influence over them.
Let's
Cyrus was
expand
not
more. Why not?
he was not seeking war for war's sake. However, if he could avoid bloodshed by negotiations, he would gladly make use of it. He saw that as an opportunity when he received word that Tamaris, queen of the Masageti, was a widow. Cyrus himself, a widower, thought that perhaps he could propose marriage to the queen and gain the lands through
My
love
question
rather
is,
than war.
how is he ruling over all this, Dan? Like, how is he in control? Like, he just got people all over governing for him, governing for him.
Basically, yes.
That's wild. So they were pretty much free because it wasn't like he was able to check on them all the goddamn time.
Well, this isn't a day when a letter would take months to get somewhere. That is if the letter made it there in the first place. So he sent this letter to the queen, and she saw right through this proposal. She knew that she was already past her prime. She realized that Cyrus was just seeking more than love by proposing to her, not wanting to share her kingdom with anyone. He fired off a letter to Cyrus, flatly rejecting his advances. Not one to be so easily dismissed, Cyrus then proceeded to plan for war. He
I
marched
will
his
say,
armies to the natural boundary. Go ahead.
you can be beautiful at any age. Just because you're past your prime, you can be beautiful at any age.
So he marched his armies to the boundary that lay between the two dominions, the Araxes River. The mighty Araxes flowed east to west through the region in the direction of the Caspian Sea. If he was going to challenge the queen, he would have to pass this formidable boundary. Even while his troops were preparing to make a crossing, Cyrus had additional problems come up in the form of the wild tribal nomads that roamed the area. Now, this was very mountainous region. It's not anything it's not anything going on.
I know, Carter.
Cyrus,
I deal with it all the time. I say some shit and then I get stonewalled with more facts about the damn story. I feel like listening to this
well,
story. I should have a probe handy, by the way.
well, you know what? I have so much in front of me right now that I'm looking forward to what I have to read next and trying to figure out how to, bring that across. That sometimes I just don't hear you, Johnny. I love you to death,
It's all
but
right.
sometimes
It works well for us because I sometimes I can go off on a tangent and say a bunch of shit, and then you're like, so in 540 BC, such and such.
right.
Carter said he's dead. No, it's one of the great dynamics we have, I think. Because I can see you over there from this screen. You are like full of information right now. You are just giving it, and it's like I love it.
Like
I see some fire in this info.
Well, I have like 4 browsers up here, and then I have my script, and then I have a couple other things open. So like I'm just trying to figure out what to go to next, and just to give the best story possible.
I just imagine Charlie in the mailroom with his cigarette, where he's got the pins lined up, and he's like, "Let me tell you about the mail." You're over there like, "Let me tell you about Cyrus the Great, man. We don't even know if he was real." I love it. I do. I love it.
Drive me to drink
You're like
water.
You're like if Dan Cummins and Kramer had a baby.
Well, I'm not going to start spouting out the N word, but
I would hope not, Dan. God, I would hope not. That wasn't an opening. Some guys would have took that as an opening. Well, I guess that's what I'm supposed to say. Oh,
get a
shit.
smoke sample. Here's the big secret. I don't like you, Johnny. You're coming down with me.
You're coming down with me. Let's go.
Oh, where are we going, George?
I was like, this podcast really got away from me. He just started dropping stuff.
He just pulled up a Wikipedia page of racial slurs and just read them all off.
I would immediately be dropping disclaimers. I'd be like, I do not share this. This is not the ideal shared by Johnny Smith or the Inquisitive Minds podcast. Like, I would just be like,
Speaking of which, since we have people watching right now, the newest episode of Inquisitive Minds podcast, hosted by the man across the screen from me, Johnny Smith. We just recently recorded an episode on veteran suicide and the veteran suicide epidemic. I am really proud of it. You should check it out whenever we're done.
I'm really proud of it too. Dan did a hell of a job on there.
We both did. Jermaine too.
Yeah. Shout out Jermaine, Lucius. Exit Zero Entertainment.
Oh my God. All right. So they were becoming under attack from these tribesmen. These Wanders, they mostly lived off the land as hunter-gatherers, but they also were known to engage in acts of cannibalism if the opportunity was presented.
If the opportunity came up.
I mean, what's the opportunity? Well, there's a dead guy there. There's a fire. Do you wanna?
Oh my Lord. Nom, 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 dead guy.
Ribs. That reminds me of the Dan Cummins bit where he talks about bringing steak sauce on the plane because if this plane's going down, I'm having barbecue. Oh no, it turns the plane crash from a tragic accident to a delicious barbecue. This was, of course, all the more reason for Cyrus and his troop to avoid them entirely. According to the storyteller Herodotus, the natives of the steppe were also apparently had the habit of holding get-togethers in which they inhaled the fumes of a certain plant, so they just all got high. The plant made the nomads so inebriated, that their subsequent actions became completely unpredictable.
Dan, your mic's out, brother. You got no volume, Chief. Hold on 1 minute. All right, guys. You got me on the line. I'm here for any type of relationship advice. What are you going through? What are you struggling with? Talk to me.
All right, shut up. I'm back. Stop it, Johnny.
Back to Cyrus the Great on Smooth Thunder.
So they didn't want to engage in battle with these guys getting high on like PCP and stuff, which is very, very understandable.
That's a great call.
These guys would just get high and eat people. Sound like partiers, but I don't know if they had roofies back then, but don't drink what they give you.
You don't need roofies if you're ready to go to war on PCP.
So Cyrus had this river to cross, and he had these guys attacking his men, probably eating some of his men. So Cyrus was determined that a floating bridge would be the best means of getting his army across the river. While Cyrus was directing the building of this piece of bridge work, representatives from the court of Queen Tamaris appeared before. Why can't it be like Queen Stephanie? Like, why? Why?
Yes.
Why did names just get easier to pronounce? Across time. Why didn't we just start out with names like Derek and Christina and stuff like that?
Oh, fuck. I relate to that so hard, Dan. Oh, thank you so much for acknowledging that.
I get sick of it every week.
I try not to say too much about it because I know they're difficult.
No, this name is spelled Tomyris. I've listened to pronunciations, but then I forget to do a page of how they're meant to be said or how my dumbass should say them, and it's just I see it and then I'm like, bleh.
Oh, this is why
So
I love this podcast, Dan, because I love you, brother. Oh my God. Oh, you're killing me tonight, man. Oh,
so so representative from the Queen's Court showed up with a message sent directly from Queen Stephanie. The Queen, seeking to reason with Cyrus, implored him to turn back and leave her in peace. She said that this would be the wisest course for him to follow for his own welfare. She ended the letter with a stern warning. After admitting that she knew he most likely would not heed her advice, she filled him in on just what kind of repercussions he would come to expect for his violation of her sovereignty. Uh,
so she still
she also
threats.
Basically, she also gave him further instructions on how he should proceed if he chose to go to battle against her. Her main concern was the manner with which the two armies should meet. The Queen informed Cyrus that she could pull her forces back further into the interior so that Cyrus's troop could more easily engage them, or even better, she informed Cyrus that she was willing to cross the river and engage Cyrus on the other side of the waters. Um,
Dan, we have a viewer.
Also,
We have a viewer question.
I wonder if she sucked a lot of dick. As far as I could tell, she only had one husband. Get your mind out of the fucking gutter, Carter. Jesus Christ. We're a professional podcast.
I'm also going to take a shot at that answer. I'm also going to take a shot at answering that.
Oh, yeah?
That's my professional podcast opinion, as you put it. No.
At first glance, the Queen appears to be doing Cyrus a favor, but this is bullshit. Because this is a weird thing to suggest on the behalf of someone attempting to overthrow a rule. You don't help out the enemy. You don't do it. It's obviously bullshit. Upon receiving the message, Cyrus found the proposal to be very strange. Unable to make any sense of it, he immediately suspected some form of treachery in this proposition. Even so, he still
Obviously.
discussed this at great lengths with his commanders to see what they might agree upon. Probably to her husband. Okay, let's respect the memory of this. Why do you want her to be a whore? With people listening on podcast platform, this is live on Facebook, so we're receiving comments mostly from one person.
Hey, man,
So
there's been like 5 people, including the guy who creeped somebody out. Fuck him, but the rest of y'all have been awesome.
right.
Shout out to Carter by play, though.
I'm not going to acknowledge that comment. We're going to keep on moving. Even so, like I said, he discussed this with his leaders like, hey guys, Stephanie said this. Do you think it's a great idea? And they're all basically like, no.
Yeah, obviously.
Herodotus, most of Cyrus's military advisors seem to agree. They believe that allowing the queen to cross the river so that they could engage him in an open area bordering Persia would give them an ever so slight territorial advantage. Cyrus often left such decisions to a majority rule of his commanders, and he was just about sold on their advice when an unexpected voice of dissent suddenly broke through the ranks. So they were going to go for it. These dumb mother. So it just happened that Cyrus had a special guest with him that argued adamantly against taking such action. That special guest was the previously conquered king, Croesus, who, according to some historians, became a trusted advisor to Cyrus. Did I say advisors? Cyrus
Yeah,
the
you said
virus.
he became a trusted advisor to Cyrus.
Sorry, I'm thinking about Con Air. You remember
We,
Cyrus
we,
the
we,
virus?
we all let you roll with it, man. You didn't have to go back. We let it roll. We knew what you meant.
Uh,
We're living in the fucking Own it, brother.
I can't see you right now, so I hope you're not taking a shit. Uh, through many,
I have
so these guys traveled everywhere together, and even though Croesus was Cyrus's prisoner, they became close, and Cyrus listened to his word. These guys became friends. It was strange. It was a strange turn for of events for conqueror and the conquered to become friendly, but this was the nature of Cyrus's leadership. He often turned his former enemies into his followers and friends. Cyrus listened closely to what he had said. It seems to me that it would be much better for you not to fall back, but to advance and to attack Tamaris and her own dominions. For if you retire in this manner in the first place, the act itself is indescribable to you. It is a retreat. Then, if in the battle that follows, Tamaris conquers you, she has already advanced 3 days' march into your dominions, and she may go on. And before you can take measures for raising another army, she can make herself mistress of your empire.
very true.
So,
Good advice.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. That is a very good strategy on Queen Stephanie's part. Um, to already get them to fall back and then attack, because that also has to be a morale breaker to his troops. These guys never fell back; they never left. So for it to happen, uh, you know, and then to be defeated, it would be disastrous.
Yeah, it would be tragic. It would look horrible.
So Croesus knew that despite what the queen might be telling Cyrus on the official level, she would probably be utilizing it to the utmost propaganda purposes to her own troops. That would be an inevitable importance in the game of psychological warfare and would provide an immediate morale booster for the queen's troops. He also pointed out that if the queen was indeed victorious, her armies would already be inside the territory of the Achaemenid Empire, therefore facilitating further aggression to be waged by the queen's army on the Persian interior. Aggression, no doubt, is facilitated in a large part by the bridge Cyrus had built, which allowed for such an easy crossing. Taking all these things into consideration and aided by the masterful way in which Croesus presented his argument, Cyrus was finally able to make a decision. He found himself rather quick to agree, and as such, the two men quickly put a bold new plan of action together. So,
I'm sure he was pleased after he reconsidered it.
Sure. Let's finish the story before you say that.
Okay.
Either way, the queen had a massive army. So, it would be a tough call. I don't know what I would have picked. Croesus brought up good points that she could just tell her army, "See, these men are retreating. They haven't even came into our territory yet." As Cyrus and his advisors began planning the means through which they would cross the river and strike out against Queen Camurus' army, a daring proposal came forth. Initiated by the former king, it utilized both cunning and audacity to ensnare their enemies. One might consider the plots and plans of a defeated king such as Croesus ill-advised, but Cyrus was ready to hear him out nonetheless. To those assembled, he declared, "I will propose the following plan. Cross the river according to the offer and advance the 3 days' journey into our country. Leave a small part of your force here with a great abundance of your most valuable baggage and supplies, luxuries of all kinds, and rich wines, and such articles as the enemy will most value as plunder. Then fall back with the main body of your army toward the river again in a secret manner and encamp in an ambush." After laying out this groundwork, He then excitedly relayed the rest of his plan. The enemy will attack your advanced detachment. They will conquer them. They will seize the stores and supplies and will suppose that your whole army is vanquished. They will fall upon the plunder and disorder and discipline of their army will be overthrown. They will go feasting upon the provisions and to drinking the wines, and then when they are in the midst of their festivities and revelry, you can come back suddenly with the real strength of the army and wholly overwhelm it. If this is true, uh, Croesus was able to captivate Cyrus and his commanders with this blissful strategy, and as such, Cyrus had his messengers inform uh, the queen that they would make use of her first suggestion, having her withdraw the main bulk of her forces so that he could cross the river with his whole army to engage her. Hold on real quick. Pumpkin roll. It's that time of the year.
Oh, okay. Have at it. You know, we all go through it. One day I'm just waiting for my opportunity to play Larry King. You know how it is.
Yeah. So her armies, led by her own son and their commander, did just as was suggested, drawing back so that Cyrus and his army could move forward. They said that Cyrus, at this point, although happy to have a plan in motion, led his armies with great hesitation. Hesitation not over the doubt of his success, but over the small amount of guilt over what he was doing. He, after all, was invading an independent nation without a valid enough cause for such extreme action. Yes, it's true that periodic bandits came from her realm were raiding his borderlands, but this was certainly not enough reason to send troops in.
Okay.
The real reason for Cyrus' was just sheer conquest in and of itself. Cyrus was determined to expand his realm by any means necessary, so he marched on.
He seems very stubborn.
Oh,
I mean, it seems like characteristic he would march on.
right. Back home, meanwhile, he made arrangements for his son Cambias II to rule in his stead. In his stead. Of worse came to worse, and he perished in the field. Cyrus knew that his son would be able to take his place permanently. So Cyrus was ready to meet his destiny. God,
How
this
old
is
was
good.
he?
Pushing close to 70. A lot of reports say.
So okay. I don't know why I assumed he was younger than that, but okay. When you say that, yeah, it makes sense that he'd be ready to go.
Mm.
And then his son, I'm sure, was at least in his 40s.
35, 40. But we're
Okay.
not sure. Because, again, they didn't leave like notes everywhere like, hey, Cyrus just had his 62nd birthday today. Hallelujah. You know? It's not like Cyrus was able to check into Facebook. Yep.
Yeah, Cyrus checked in. Well, did you see the live stream about the crazy shit that Cyrus is doing?
Oh, man.
Cyrus fucked up 3 blocks of Portland.
Hashtag winning.
Yeah. Remember when Charlie Sheen was the top story? Holy fuck, what a world we live in now, huh? I got tiger blood. I'm an Adonis. What? I don't even know what the fuck tiger blood means. But, I don't know. He was the original Tiger King, I guess.
It means that he did lines of cocaine, killed a tiger, and then drank its blood.
Shout out to Joe Exotic. Anybody out there believe Carol Baskins killed her husband? Unrelated to the story.
Still haven't yet to watch
she's
that
like
show.
Cyrus the Great. She's like Cyrus the Great because she just overtook Joe Exotic's little animal park. She's just conquering animal parks and shit. She's going in.
Right?
Oh, how did that
All
pop
right.
up on the main screen?
Oh, I did that.
Oh, you're dope. Oh,
Oh,
so we
I
can
just
put
clicked it.
questions up there.
Yeah.
Oh, look at us
Now that
learning and advancing. Johnny is not popping a
yeah.
squat, y'all. It's proof.
Oh,
Wow, that's
hello,
so cool.
hook chain stitch, truth revealer.
Hook chain stitch.
I know you guys are catching up, but we're doing the podcast here. What's up? Learning about Cyrus the Great. Welcome, guys. Got 8
Can we
people
take
watching.
Johnny's not popping a squat off?
Well, I don't know how to take it off.
Well, click it again. See if that takes it off.
Oh, there it
Boom.
is.
Look at me. I'm a technological genius.
Yes, he
Man,
was.
people are
Good.
eating it.
Truth revealer note.
The greatest Persian that ever lived. I don't really know too many Persians, so I mean, I'll take your word for it.
Well, like we've talked about, he not only started this empire, but he treated people with mercy and respect. Um,
Some dignity.
so after crossing,
You want some dignity with your government?
so after crossing into the lands, Cyrus followed the plan and endeavored to use a small contingent of troops as bait. He ordered a fraction of his main army to detach himself from the main force and march right into the middle of enemy territory. He then had them carry. Uh, yes, appreciate that, Ash Polls. Please share us. Also, if you're looking for Reiki and stuff like that, Ash did it for me online with obviously a fee. It was great. It was a wonderful experience. Highly recommend her. He ordered a small part of his army detached. He left them with all the goods and everything. Um, Apparently, Cyrus had been
All the
informed.
pillageable.
What?
All your
Oh, the parry.
pillageables.
Yes, basically. So he hoped that their intoxication would give him the upper hand. Cyrus then calmly watched from the sidelines as the soldiers did indeed draw the air of the enemy. And yes, devil horns, Ash. Um, so basically, they laid back, let his men get get overrun. Cyrus willingly sacrificed the lives of these men in order to trick the queen's army into believing that his main martial arm had been defeated. Cyrus then continued to keep the rest of his troops on standby while they observed the victorious enemy troops feasting on the food and drinking the wine that they had captured. According to the narrative, Cyrus waited until the enemy troops had been completely distracted by getting hammered drunk, as you will. Once they were sufficiently intoxicated, the veritable buffet he had left them, Cyrus ordered his main army to launch a surprise attack. His plan seemed to work. The Queen's troops were indeed caught off guard and were roundly butchered by Cyrus's army. They even managed. Yeah, I'm looking at that. It keeps distracting me. We've got a. They even managed to capture the Queen's son. Jesus Christ. We're just going to call him Daryl. It's Spargagpuses. Yeah. Spargagappises. We're just calling him S.
Mr. Asparagus.
Mr. Asparagus. He had served as a commander of the contingent. Mr. S himself had been quite overcome with wine at the time of the attack, and apparently it took him a while to sober up to realize what happened. Imagine coming to out of a great drunken stupor and your entire army is just basically captured or killed. Like, just imagine that.
It's
You
terrifying.
know,
It's terrifying. I mean, like,
uh,
what do you do?
when this young man finally came to and discovered
That's like
himself to be bound,
blacking out and waking up in prison, or in jail, or what have.
that's exactly what happened. He woke up in handcuffs. He was held prisoner in Cyrus's camp, where his comrades lay dead all around him. He quite understandably cried out in despair. He was depressed over the loss of his life and his restrained condition, to be sure, but more than anything else, he was sad over the fact that he had failed his queen mother. Mother and son apparently had a very close and loving relationship, and he was filled with immense shame in the knowledge that he had let her down. Despite his capture, the situation was not as bad as it seemed. The queen had made plans for such a contingency and had left a large group of reserve troops in place. As it turns out, the force that Mr. Asparagus had led was only a small fraction of the tremendous army she had amassed. We talked about this earlier. Her troops were large. Um, so even while
Yeah.
Cyrus was with the false assumption that he had decimated her main army, she was assembling her second wave of troops. Just trickery all around. It was a terrible liability to have her son held hostage, however, and not wanting to risk Cyrus doing him harm, the queen showed great restraint. She could have simply unleashed her
Oh,
main
that's
force
cool.
and devastated Cyrus, and then and there, but out of concern for her beloved son, she sent him a conciliatory letter instead. Being cautious monarch that she was, she still sought to reason with Cyrus, hoping that further bloodshed could be avoided. In doing so, she forfeited the element of surprise that she could have had and bluntly informed Cyrus that he had no cause to celebrate his victory. Like, hey, motherfucker, you think you won, but you didn't. And that he had only conquered one third
Man,
of her forces.
the war is not over. I
The
don't know
coup.
why I jumped into that voice.
Oh, man.
Eggplants everywhere, as far as the eye could see. Here's an
Uh,
eggplant. There's an eggplant.
so then she revealed that the main bulk of her army was still operational and fully capable of putting down Cyrus's army for good. After delivering these facts, she employed Cyrus to free her son and turn back his army in order to avoid his own destruction. She promised that if he did so, she would let bygones be bygones and allow Cyrus and his men to cross over into Persia without any harm. If he did not listen to her
Okay, so
pleas
she's
for
giving
peace,
it out.
right? If he didn't listen, she swore a solemn oath that she would vanquish him, that he would be defeated. Um, the record is
I
not
will
entirely.
end you.
Basically, she's calling him out. The record is not entirely clear what Cyrus thought of her words. Perhaps he believed the queen was desperate, and this was merely a
Hold
ploy
on,
to
Dan.
stay.
You're telling me the record's not clear from some guy's story?
Right,
The record's
right.
not clear from some guy who just tells stories all goddamn day. I'll be shocked. God damn it.
Uh, After she made such bold claims of having a huge army which she could easily dispatch the army of Cyrus, you would think that Cyrus might look into the matter a bit before launching an attack. After all, according to Herodotus, Cyrus was in possession of a vital source of information, the queen's son. Unless his mother had kept the number secret of troops she had scored away, even from her son in general, you would think that an interrogation of the young man would help Cyrus determine the veracity of the claims. But according to the story, there would be no opportunity for Cyrus to question the young man. Not long after uh, Spartacus's capture, he would take his own life. It would seem that being captured by the enemy in such a manner, drunk and completely off guard, was considered highly dishonorable for his people. He felt that he had not only dishonored his queen mother, but also his entire country. Even if he were freed and brought back to his kingdom, he felt that he could never live down the shame. Um, seeing
Oh, there
how
it is.
dejected
Pride will get you killed every time.
Seeing how dejected the young man was, it is said that Cyrus, who apparently often had a soft spot for his captives, sought to make him a little more comfortable by removing his shackles and allowing him to roam freely around his encampment. This proved to be a fatal mistake, however, because as soon as the man's hands were free, he finagled a knife and used it to end his own life.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't see that coming at all.
Cyrus, who seems to have had a track record of people committing suicide when his back was turned, was dismayed to hear the news. But the one who would even be even more distraught was the man's mother, Queen Tamaris. It is said that when she discovered the final fate of her son, she became frantic with grief and rage. And the awful thirst for vengeance that consumed her, she prepared her army that would crush Cyrus once and for all. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. On the
Oh,
fateful
like a
day,
mother with a broken heart.
yeah, on the fateful day that the catastrophic conflict between King Tamiris and Cyrus the Great came to a head, Cyrus was not sure exactly what to expect, but he fought to fortify his troops as much as possible. As he encouraged his men to march on, it was only when the massive
Dan's
army of the
marching
Queen
through. It's like the 12th round.
could be seen across
Proud of
the
you, brother.
horizon.
I see the fire in your eyes.
We have a lot of information to
Yeah,
get
it's like,
through.
cut me. I
As,
can't see.
as, as much as I try to cut these episodes down, I really can't steer away from the details. Like, this is all important to
Yeah,
the story. At first, both Cyrus and the Queen chose to let loose with the arrows of their bowmen, hoping to take out as many of the enemy troops as possible. It was only after all their arrows were sent that the two sides unleashed their infantry, who proceeded to hack away at each other in bloody sword-to-sword combat. When Cyrus himself acknowledged it or not, his troops seemed to know just how desperate their situation was, and they fought with the desperation of men whose very lives depended upon their success. With a formidable army in front of them and a large river behind them, even retreat was sure to mean certain death. Cyrus's army was trapped. They had no choice but to fight on and hope that they could somehow triumph over the insurmountable odds that they had been dealt. The Queen's forces, on the other hand, knew that they had the advantage. They not only had the superior numbers, but they were defending their home, which is something to be said. If you're defending your home, you fight with fire. You fight tooth and nail. They also had a sense of moral justification on their side. It was, after all, their land that was being invaded, and their queen that was avenging the loss of their son and the top commander. Neither side refusing to give an inch of ground. It is said that the armies fought a bloody stalemate throughout most of the day. By nightfall, however, it is clear that the Persians were on the losing end of the large chunk of their army completely wiped out. Unable to hold the army back any further. Oh yeah, man. It just
like
hacking
just
and
tires
swinging.
worn the fuck out. People's arms giving out from swinging swords all goddamn day.
The Persian
Carrying
lines,
shields. Oh, I'm sure.
the Persian lines buckled completely, and they were overran. They overran Cyrus's encampment. It is not entirely clear how Cyrus died, whether he was taken unaware by marauders or he valiantly fought to his breath. There are multiple accounts, but by the morning, his dead body was found. Victory now clearly theirs for the taking. The overjoyed troops hauled the bloody and mangled corpse of Cyrus the Great back to their encampment. so that Cyrus macabre marines uh, could be properly introduced to the queen. According to Herodotus, Queen was still overcame with an insane reign over what happened to her son. The fact that Cyrus was already dead was not enough to quench her thirst for vengeance. Needing to vent her anger, she mutilated Cyrus's body. As she was defiling Cyrus's corpse, she could be heard screaming, "Miserable wretch!" I No. Come on, miserable wretch. You stupid fuck. I fucking hate you.
Was
Come on,
she
that's what
aware? Was she aware that her son slit his own throat though?
I think so.
Because I guess she's angry that her son's dead, but he killed himself.
Because he was captured because of Cyrus. though
Yeah,
I
I
am
mean,
in
I
the
get
end
that.
though I am in the end your conqueror. You have ruined my peace and happiness forever. You have murdered my son. But I promised you your fill of blood, and you shall have it. It is said that she ordered her troops to fill a wineskin with Persian blood extracted from recently slaughtered prisoners of war. She then severed Cyrus's head from his body and dropped it in the blood-filled wineskin, for which she screamed, "Drink their insatiable monster till your murderous thirst is satisfied." And if we are to believe Herodotus' account, this is how Cyrus the Great met his end. The great king was decisively defeated and utterly destroyed by a nomadic queen. Whatever the exact details, his son Cambyses II took over rule of the Achaemenid Empire upon his father's death around 530 BC. In the end, Cyrus may have lost the battle, but he did not lose the war. The empire he built would continue to expand for years and years to come.
Now, modern day Persia, that's Iran?
Yes, this Iran, Turkey,
Okay.
Syria, this whole area. So, Johnny, this is up to you. We got a couple battles to discuss, probably about 20 more minutes. We can end this and restart a new one, make it part 3, or we can push through to the end. We're at an hour and 8 right now. What do you want to do?
Let's make a part 3. Let's make a part 3 so I can take a quick recess. We can walk around for a few minutes, bathroom, stuff like that.
All right, folks, thank you for joining us. I'm going to this live for about 15 minutes from now. I appreciate everybody. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Google Cast, Anchor, appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe wherever possible. Leave reviews. We love doing this. We love you guys enjoying it. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely.
Johnny, you want to push your stuff?
Just check me out at inquisitiveminds.com. That's INQUIZATIVE. Minds, it's spelled a little bit different. You can check me out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that jazz.
All right. So just in case this doesn't end like the last 2 times and I have to turn my internet off real quick, just continue talking if it doesn't happen. If not, we'll see you guys in a little bit. Thank you for listening.
Sounds good.
Come on. Oh, yep. I got
We're trying to go off, guys.
Off.
Words of entertainment.